everybody.
Go ahead.
All right, I was clicking off some stuff at the bottom of the screen. Good morning, everybody. I'm Marion. I'm in New Orleans. I am taking Marva Guillemet's place this morning. I'm happy to have done that for her. We have a very interesting discussion that we're going to engage in this morning. But first, we're going to start by introducing ourselves. I'd like to, for you to keep in mind that we are under time constraints, and I would appreciate it if everybody would participate this morning. I think it's an extraordinary, very interesting topic that we're going to discuss this morning. So according to the people on the screen, on my screen, we're going to go starting with Nancy. Say a little bit about yourselves, tell us where you are and when you joined the Erace organization.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Nancy Moore. I joined the Erace organization in June of 2007, and I am in New Orleans.
Thank you, Nancy. Bill?
I'm Bill Ives, and I joined Erace about 4 years ago. People say, if you're having fun, you don't know how long things have been because you're not counting the time. But I learned something every time. We have a house guest from China, and the discussion about Chinese names was very timely because we understood the structure of her Chinese name. And so I learned something every time. I look forward to this discussion.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you, Bill. Louise? We can't hear you.
Oh,
No, we can.
yes.
I
Now?
heard that. Mhm.
All right.
That's weird.
At least I couldn't hear you.
No, I couldn't either.
We couldn't either.
Okay, but you can now.
Yes.
Yay. I'm been a member of Erace for a couple of decades, and from New Orleans to Austin, where I am now. Oh, and I have something that I'm going to put into the chat at some point, a TED talk I just listened to, which is perfect for our what we're doing and what we're trying to do and whatever. Anyway, that's it.
Thank you, Louise. Jenny?
Hello, Jenny Fredericks in Austin, Texas, where I think about half of the mail-in ballots, vote by mails have been rejected because of God knows why. Oh, it makes me insane. And I have been a member, not long, a matter of months. So thanks.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Cynthia? Cindy?
Good morning. I'm Cindy. Oh,
You're fine. You're not muted.
okay. I expected always to be muted but I don't usually do it. Okay, excuse me. Cynthia Morse, which I hated as a kid. I'm in New Orleans. Been here, turns out 50 years, which I love, but it's not my home. Grew up in North Carolina, small town, country, sort of tobacco farm area, country living a little bit. I was a teacher for many years, which I adored, teaching little bitty ones. So that was fun. I'm excited. This discussion, this article looks like a wonderful summary. And we got an awful lot of people in this country that need to know these things and don't seem to be open to them, which is distressing. Anyway, looking forward to it. Thanks.
Thank you, Cindy. Leonetta?
Good morning, everybody. My name's Lynetta Terrell. I'm in Metairie, and I've been a member since I was an intern.
Thank you, Leonetta. Nora?
Morning, everybody. I'm in Austin and I've been coming to the meetings for, I don't know, 6 months, maybe not that long. Anyway, I always enjoy it. Thanks.
Thank you. Beatrice?
Hi, good morning. I had a moment, I'm here in East Point, one of the founders with my late husband, Larry, of our Atlanta Erace. And we are currently at 35 degrees. It's a great heat wave. And for Jenny and others in Austin, I heard that they're advising people when you send in your form, put your license number, put your social security, put everything, so maybe they won't reject it. But glad to be here, and retired elementary middle school principal, and also a poet. Good morning, everyone.
Thank you, Beatrice. Pedro? Pedro? All right.
Sorry about that. I was fell asleep there trying to get to my mic there. Anyhow, I'm in Austin, born in Austin, and been into my second year with this fine group of people, and look forward, as always, to our discussion and discourse today. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Pedro. Jean is next.
I'm a little slow opening up. Good morning. I'm Jean Walker. I live in Silver Spring, Maryland, and I've been attending Erace about 6 months now. Beatrice introduced me to the group, and I always enjoy our discussions. And did anybody listen to The Other America by Dr. Martin Luther King? Was the attachment just so eloquent and so apropos today, even though it was a speech he gave in 1967. Thank you. Looking forward to talking with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Jean is my middle name. I am Marion Jean Mackey Davis Lagarde.
Can you get that all on one line?
Yes. I write very small if I have to sign my name.
Yeah, right, great. Okay.
Thank you, Jean. Rebecca?
Good morning, everybody. So I'm glad to be here in this wonderful group that has been meeting impressively long. But I've only been coming for about 2 or 3 years, and I live near Boston, though I used to go to New Orleans for the winter before the pandemic, because my son lives here. So I thought the article was wonderful. It's very sad, so it's hard to say that it's wonderful, but I think it's a message that I agree with the person who just said it's a message we need to really promote to everybody, because I think there are people that are not aware of it. And it just happens all the time that I find one more thing that people of color have little access to. And it makes me very, very sad. So I look forward to the meeting. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Rebecca. Lynn?
Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry, I'm running a little bit late, and I'm going to turn off my image in a few minutes so that I can eat my peanut butter sandwich in privacy, but I'll be here. I was reading a book from my book club, and there was a passage in it I wanted to mention to you briefly because it pertains to our discussion of last week. She was researching ancestors who came over from Romania And she said, it wasn't the officials at Ellis Island who changed everybody's name due to their laziness or ignorance. The ship manifest. The Ellis Island officials looked at the ship manifest, and it was the ship bursars who put the wrong names down. And sometimes the immigrants themselves changed their names, wanting to sound more American. So let's have a little more kindness towards the officials at Ellis Island.
Thank you, Lynn.
And I'm glad to be here. I'm happy to see everyone. And I'll be back in with my image after my breakfast. But I'm still here hearing you.
Thank you, Lynn. Leonetta?
No,
You did, Leonetta.
Oh, we did Leonetta. Okay, things have jumped on the screen. The
Yeah, they
screen has
moved
jumped around. Michelle?
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
yeah,
Okay, good. Sorry, I'm a little late. Had to see my daughter off this morning. I am Michelle, and I see bunches of familiar faces, so most of you know me. I'm in Austin. I've been coming to Erace since the summer of 2020, and because of Louise, who's here in Austin, it introduced me. So nice to see everybody this morning. Looking forward to the topic.
Thank you, Michelle. As I said earlier, I am going to be.
You skipped me and you skipped the
Oh.
phone number person.
It's gone.
Oh, I can still see 504-66-1798.
Okay,
That's-
are you
that's me.
there,
This is Qu-
504?
This is Quinn. Yes, this is Quinn Bates, and I can't get my app to work for seeing an image, but I can hear you.
Okay.
You want me to introduce myself, Marion?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Quinn Bates. I haven't been here since y'all went virtual. I really don't like virtual at all, but I decided to come out for this topic. I'm the only conservative I've ever seen at this very well-organized format. And unlike you all, I think this article proves that systemic racism does not exist. That's my opinion. And I have a great quote, if I get a chance to talk later, from Martin Luther King. Thank you.
Thank you, Quinn. Are you sure you can't put your image on the screen?
Yes, I am. I have a smartphone, but the operator of the smartphone isn't very smart. I'm sorry. But I know
Okay.
I miss Glenn, by the way. I miss Glenn. Where is Glenn?
Probably
I
late.
have no idea. I talked to him the other day. I just assumed he'd be here, but evidently he has other plans for
You see,
this morning.
Tell him I miss him.
Well,
Surely.
as a superhero, he may be out doing special operations.
All right. Thank you, Quinn.
Absolutely.
Glad that you joined us this morning. Phyllis?
Hi, everybody. I am Phyllis. I am in New Orleans, which many hundreds of, probably thousands of years ago was known as Bulbancha. And I have been in New Orleans since 2008, and I'm looking forward to this discussion. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Phyllis. Thank you, everyone, for giving us a little insight into who we have joining our group this morning. So as I said earlier, I'm Marion, and I'm going to be your facilitator. We have a few little rules that we have to follow. Everyone is going to be given 2 minutes to speak. I would appreciate it if Phyllis would keep the time. I'm a little groggy this morning. I took some medicine for my back pain. It knocks the back pain out, but it puts me in la-la land. So I hope I don't say anything inappropriate. The pain goes away, but I'm on cloud 9. So with that being said, we have the introductory slogan, we seek ways through person-to-person communication. We're dedicated to treating people of all colors with love and respect. Join us. And so many of you have this morning, and we're looking forward to a very interesting conversation. So with that being said, I think I said a couple of seconds ago that we have 2 minutes to speak and get back on the list. If you have a clarifying question, you raise 2 fingers, wiggle your fingers a little bit in front of you so that we can see you and acknowledge you. If you have one finger to be on the, to participate in the discussion, and it's 2 fingers if you have a clarifying question. Sorry about that. So with that being said, we'd like to open the discussion for remarks. Pedro, are you raising your finger? No. I'm scanning the screen. Anyone who'd like to join us first? Rebecca? Unmute.
Okay, so good morning again. So I had an interesting experience. I ran a sort of a small nursing home called a rest home in a very classy area in Boston, and we wanted to serve people who, we wanted to serve low-income people. And I, in particular, wanted to hire staff of color and hoped to have people come and use the service who are also of color. So I wanted somebody, I wanted to be sure there were people of color working as aides and people working in management. And so I wanted to hire a person of color to develop a new program for people who helped older people with their finances. And I really had a hard time. I had to go out and look for people, try to meet people that were already had jobs. And it became clear to me that very few people were working in management. So it was hard to find somebody working in management who could recommend another person for this job. It really took me perhaps as long as 6 weeks to find the wonderful person that I finally did find to take the job. And then we also found people to serve on the board, I think a couple of people, but it did make a huge difference. That's the positive thing, because this is certainly very negative, the way this is set up to protect wealthy white people. The way our whole society is set up. It's true, it is set up to do that. And the government is fighting that. And I think that is what made Trump come out against the government. So anyway, that's my whole story. That might be 2 minutes. Thanks.
Thank you, Rebecca. Quinn, are you raising your finger?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Are you
Can you
wish
hear
to
me?
speak?
Yes, I appreciate it. Thank you, Marion. Let me just say, one of the 7 factors they mention here is surveillance, increased surveillance. Now, those of you who live in New Orleans today, what are police doing surveillance on? They're not doing surveillance on people that look like you and me. They're doing surveillance on Black teenagers, Black young people, because that's who's doing the carjacking. That's the #1 crime problem in there. So are they racist? Of course not. All 7 of those things are based on one factor you have to remember. If you don't have family support, you're not going to succeed. You're going to wind up in poverty. And I hate this. I mean, it's just a fact. I was a CASA worker. I had cases for Black kids, with all boys, Black boys, and I had white boys. They all had the same problem. They're abused and neglected, but they don't have family structure. And they wind up exactly the same. It doesn't make any difference. I have white kids who I used to be who are in jail right now, and I have Black kids who are in jail right now. It doesn't make any difference. It's the family structure that makes a difference. It's not that we have a racist society. And this whole systemic racism idea is just destructive. And there's a great book by John McWhorter called Woke Racism, how a religious mentality or something has betrayed the Black person. It's a great book, and I recommend it. So anyway, that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Quinn. The list is open.
Bill has the finger up.
Who is that?
Bill
Bill?
and
I-
Louise
All right, for some reason, and
and
Beatrice.
Beatrice. You gotta
All right.
scan. It's a lot of people.
I'm scanning and who did you say after Bill?
Louise,
Louise, and I saw Beatrice.
Bill, you're on the
Did I
list
miss?
now.
All right,
Jean,
okay, very good.
This is like a review of many of our discussions. Every topic we've looked at, we find systematic racism. And this is a nice summary of what we've encountered in our discussions. I want to thank the group because I've learned a lot from our discussions, especially about the many microaggressions that African Americans and other people of color experience. And it's made me more conscious of that. And I recently observed one and I called it out. And we were able to allow the perpetrator to understand the negative impact of her actions. And she was not aware of it. She was not being intentionally racist consciously, but she said some things that directed to another, a Black member of our group that I could tell was a microaggression, even though it was unintentional. So we were able to constructively let this this woman understand the negative impact of her actions, and she apologized to the Black woman, and she apologized in front of the whole group that had observed this action. So I thank the group for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. We have Louise.
So I have to mention the microaggression on steroids that happened just a couple of days ago. Mitch McConnell's comment, I don't know, and if you haven't heard it, I quote, "The concern is misplaced because if you look at the statistics, African American voters are voting in just as a high percentage as Americans." I mean, just wow, right? Just wow. Well, I say link, I didn't put a link because I don't know how to do it because I'm a complete idiot when it comes to technical stuff. But just this morning, I was listening to the Verna Myers TED Talk, which is excellent. It's only 15 minutes and I really recommend it. And again, it's kind of what we are trying to pursue here. And it talks about, kind of something that we can actually do as white folks every day or in our lives, something positive. I know we're always like, well, what can we do? Well, this is something. So anyway, I think that's it for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Louise. We have Beatrice and Jean, and then the list will be open. So please feel free to jump into this conversation. So Beatrice,
Yeah, just some comments about the organization of the article, which I was very impressed with, actually. The visuals, the statistics, the information that is incredibly accurate. And just thinking about I've just finished reading the chapter in 1619 that the essay that was written by Brian Stevenson talking about the inequities in the justice system and how African Americans are more likely to be to have longer sentences, to have committed similar or same crimes to white persons and get different outcomes. It stares you in the face, the information about wealth that is presented here, the inability of African Americans to take part in the housing program that was available to veterans, just, not being able to build generational wealth, the redlining, just the statistics are here. I am reading also Woke Racism, and McWhorter's argument, of course, is that those of us who are making an issue, the anti-racists, the people who write books like White Fragility, are making things difficult for Black people because we are like a religion. And I know we had an earlier speaker who talked about that. I am not on the same page with John McWhorter. I respect him, but I'm not on that same page at all. I just want to comment on the way that these 7 conditions are presented in this article with backup statistics. And then those of us that have read any history, but this is not new stuff. And it's ongoing. And I find it somewhat discouraging to listen to someone. 2 things I'll tell you about Mitch McConnell. A while back, when people were talking about reparations, he said, well, that was 150 years ago. What history is he aware of? Where has he been? That he doesn't know that slavery and all being enslaved and reconstruct, all of that has followed Jim Crow, all of that has followed people, African Americans. Where has he been? And this thing that he said about African Americans as if we are not Americans, and he's trying to take it back now, of course. But what's in your mind when you say that? What's in your mind when you say that? So I find it very discouraging. So I'm done. I'm sure I've gone over. Sorry.
So the order for the list, Marion, is Michelle, Glenn, and then Bill. Michelle's had her finger up the whole time B was talking.
All right, I was looking at the screen and I wrote Bill's name again. Who's next? Is it Jean?
Well, and then you have to put Michelle,
Michelle should be before
Glenn,
me.
Michelle, Glenn, and then Bill.
Michelle, Glenn, and Bill. All right, we have Jean, followed by Michelle.
Yes, I thought it was an excellent article. I agree with B. The one thing they missed is transportation. Notice that whenever you've got a big highway coming through, does it go through the white suburban area? No, it goes through a Black area. We've got an issue right now where when they put in a big highway, it's split or it cut off an African-American community. And now they want to put those electric trains from here to New York. And once again, they want to go through that same area, cutting back the African-American community even smaller. And this has gone on for ages. I mean, you just look and they go through the middle of the Black community and, bifurcate it. Racism is not a myth. It is not a myth in any part of our lives. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jean. We have Michelle.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say that I found it interesting that the article came from the Ben & Jerry's website. I know that they're a progressive company, but I just had to comment on that because I didn't realize that they did this kind of stuff for the benefit of the public, basically. So, but yeah, and I agree with Bill as well. We've been through a lot of these issues individually as a group. And so each time it's presented as such, I learn a little bit more. And I will say that again, and I've said this many times too, I'm on Twitter and I choose to follow many, many people of color because it's a great way to get insight into people's experiences that you wouldn't otherwise have because these people are spread out all around the country. And it's certainly given me a perspective of a fly on the wall, so to speak, to people's experiences that I otherwise wouldn't have. And so it adds to my knowledge bank of how people are treated. And yeah, I take them for what they are. I don't assume that people are embellishing their stories there just for the purpose of it. I mean, most of the people I follow are pretty professional people, journalists, people in healthcare, people in other professions, and their experiences solidify for me that yes, they are people. they are not treated the same in this society. Things are different for them. And I cannot ignore that each time I hear another or I read another experience. So, the things that are put out in the news and the sources that I come across, they're just backed up by all those things that I read on Twitter as well. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Glenn?
Yes, there definitely is systemic racism in America. All right. You see it when you come to policing, that someone going to say they made a mistake. They thought they were shooting a guy with a taser and shot him with a gun. That don't happen to white folks. Or someone on somebody's neck and taking the breath out of him while he's being filmed on camera. That don't happen to white folks. I was working on the riverfront at a place where I was a tractor trailer driver, and they had places inside this plant that they didn't want any blacks working. They only wanted that exclusively for whites. And so it's still going on. Now, is it bad as it was before civil rights? No, it's not. Is it getting better? Yes, it is. And our people don't get help. They don't help themselves by the character change. We have a change in our character. In the 1950s, it was a different type of African American character. Our character today is very immoral. And don't tell me about the white folks. I ain't concentrating on the white folks. I'm talking about us. We the ones that have the problem. We got to help ourselves, and not just complain and complain and complain and waiting on Congress to pass some law. We got to change ourselves. And that's my comment.
All right, thank you, Glenn. Bill? After Bill is Jean, and then the list will be open.
I don't want to.
Mary, can you put Quinn on there too, please?
All right, I have you. I saw your square blinking. All right. I'm sorry. Bill?
Yes, I want to second what Beatrice said about housing. I learned a while back that it was official written government policy to not provide FHA loans to African Americans in certain neighborhoods. It was government policy. It wasn't under the cover discrimination. And not only that, but white people who got a mortgage in those areas had to sign a document that said they would not sell their home to African Americans. They would not rent to African Americans. And that is clearly the grounds for reparations, because that was a government policy. I would like to see someone take a class action suit against the government and for reparations for the people, not all African Americans, but for the people who were denied. I think all African Americans are entitled to reparations, but this is specifically people who were denied those mortgages and denied living in those areas and denied the opportunity to build wealth. My family, my father, my parents didn't have a lot of money, but they were able to, their first home was a 3-unit building, and they rented out 2 to cover the mortgage and lived in the other one. And after that, they were able to buy a single family home. And my father was a college professor who didn't make a lot of money. And but he was able to, through the succession of the houses that they lived in and sold, he was able to build wealth. And that's what happened with a lot of white people who didn't have a lot of money to begin with, but they built wealth through their homes. So there's clearly that factor. And since the government ruled, it wasn't covert, it was overt official government policy that denied that wealth to African Americans, there's grounds for reparations because it was overt official government policy. Anyway, I think I've said enough. I see
Glenn has a clarifying question, Bill.
Glenn with a G?
Glenn, yes.
Yes, Glenn.
I canceled that. I put my hand up to be on the list.
Okay.
Yeah, can I also get on the list, please?
Pedro,
And B,
I have Jean, Quinn, Glenn, Pedro,
and B.
and Beatrice, okay. My screen froze. I'm sorry about that. It's okay. Here we go. Jean?
Yes, under surveillance, it's not just police that surveil African Americans, Black people. My son, who is Black, when he went to one day, he was a teenager, and he went to a mom and pop store, and the woman accused him of casing the place to steal. So he came home and told me, and I promptly went down. She, of course, denied it. And then she said, and I told him never to go back there again. But the other thing is that Margaret was a supervisor of mine when I was a probation officer, lovely Black woman. And she and her friend, one of her friends, were in a department store, and they were stopped on their way out, and they were made to go into the office. They checked their bags, and I mean, I'm sure that many people here have experienced being followed when they go into a store somewhere. They're watched. It's the surveillance is not just police surveillance. It's the white people who are afraid of Black people. And they follow them and make sure that everything's okay. And everything, of course, is okay. I'm sorry. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Jean. Quinn, I have you down after Jean.
Okay.
And she just spoke. So now it's your turn.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm glad to hear Glenn. Glenn always speaks for himself, and he speaks differently than everybody else, and I admire him for that. Glenn, let me recommend a book to you, Fault Lines by Bodie T. Bocom Jr. He's a Black minister who's a dean of a college in Zambia, Africa, but he's an American, Baptist, conservative Baptist. Anyway, he puts a lot of these things in perspective. These things do happen to white people. They really do happen to white people, and he points out to them. I'm not saying, I'm certainly not apologizing for what has been done, which was wrong, okay? And let me say something else about surveillance. When I was a white teenager, 14, 15, 16 years old, I used to get stopped a lot. You know why? Because there was a lot of crime by white teenagers in New Orleans East. And we used to get stopped regularly and checked out. And I can understand why. In my own neighborhood, about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I was walking my dog like I always do. And there was a young Black man, maybe 19 or 20, and 4 police cars had him, interrogating him right on the corner of the street. It looked like they were about to handcuff him. And I just kept walking. When I came back, everything was gone. And the next day was a Saturday. I'm walking my dog, and he called out to me. It was that same young man. And he told me he'd seen me pass with the dog. And I went and talked to him about it. And I said, well, why did they stop you anyway? He said they never handcuffed me, but they looked like they were going to. He said, the reason they said they stopped me is because I matched the description of somebody they were looking for. I fit his identity. I said, you realize you probably did. He said, yeah, I realize I probably did, but I still don't like it. He said, I like to be able to go walking. So I was a chaplain with the Jefferson Parish Police at the time, Sheriff's Office. I went and talked to the district commander. I brought his name and I gave him my card. And I said, look, this kid wasn't doing anything. I know the house he lives in. They don't cause any problems. And he said he appreciates what I did. And he would let his people know that. He said they were legitimate stop, but they wanted to know that they would not try not to pick on this particular kid. So it happens to everybody. And that's not right now, they're looking for black teenagers who carjack people. And that's just doing good police work, in my opinion. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Quinn. Glenn,
Rebecca has her finger up.
I'm sorry.
Rebecca.
Rebecca,
to
I'm
get on the
sorry,
list.
Rebecca. Rebecca,
No, well, she's not next. She's to get on the list.
okay, oh, who does she follow, Phyllis? Because I have Glenn.
She should be the last person on the list.
All right,
And then whoever you have after Quinn.
all right. Glenn,
Okay, first of all, Quinn, I'm not gonna waste my time reading that book. But if you send me a YouTube video of white folks being a policeman pressing on a white person's neck and killing them, or somebody you show me some video proof of that. There's so much video proof of what I'm talking about. If that is happening to white folks, there should be plenty of proof of it. Now, what was that? That ain't what I wanted to talk about. You know.
I'll send it to you, Glenn.
Yeah, great. Now, what was it I wanted to talk about? Oh, yeah. You know, we're talking about discrimination in housing, what Bill was talking about. And yeah, that happened then, but it's not happening now. You know, I live in a duplex and I rent out to an African-American, the bottom part. And do you know what the government how the government is helping that family? They only got to pay me $18 a month. And the government pay the rest. The government pays the rest for them. So, you got to look at the whole picture, not just bring up what happened about 70 years ago. You know, look how Black people are being helped by the government that used to be used against them. You just can't just bring up weighing the scale on one end and not looking at the other end. And that's all I have to say.
all right, Glenn, thank you. Pedro,
Louise has her finger up.
I have you, Louise.
And Bill. And Jean and Ginny.
Who's after Bill?
Jean and then Ginny.
All right.
Cindy, did you have a finger up? No, okay.
All right, thank you. Pedro?
Yeah, the reason we call it systemic racism is because it's like a virus that goes through a whole bunch of people's bodies. It's everywhere. And these apologetic types of rationalizations are made in good faith, but they're just not accurate. To suggest that it's because of family dysfunction that we have such disproportionate rates of African American being victims of the criminal justice system, it ignores the fact of systemic racism that disproportionately has incarcerated African Americans. In Alabama, in 1850, before the Civil War, 99% of those incarcerated were white. In Alabama, following the Civil War, with the Jim Crow after emancipation, 85% of the incarcerated were Black. Blacks were criminalized for vagrancy, for all sorts of nonsense that whites were not subjected to. And so we had the same thing with the crack laws. And throughout current history, we are incarcerating Blacks. And then we say they don't have families. They don't have a dad around. Well, how can they have a dad around when so many are incarcerated, when so many are in poverty, when so many, when you look at the wealth inequality of this nation, the disproportionality into the 21st century is astounding. And so what Beatrice mentioned earlier about these incarceration rates and that Blacks getting longer sentences, this is all completely validated, Quinn, and to ignore it is to is not proper and will continue to systemic racist types of unconscious tendencies. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Pedro. We had the little signal, the 2-minute warning. Beatrice?
Yeah, just a couple of things. One is that if you want to know more about what I've been referring to with housing issues, and Bill picked up on The Color of Law, does an excellent job of talking about how legal discrimination against African Americans has occurred ever since the housing that veterans got. I am with Glenn about personal responsibility. I'm with Glenn about that. I've spoken before about what I consider the sphere of influence, your circle. I mean, you can be responsible personally, but there comes a point at which it goes beyond what you personally can do. If there are systemic issues that are keeping your family from advancing for whatever reasons, the education that you're getting, the fact that you would be more likely to be suspended for doing the same thing that another kid of another color would be doing, so you get pushed out of school, or that the schools in your neighborhood are not funded like ones in other neighborhoods, that they don't have the resources, that you're getting the less able teachers, that you can advocate against it, but as a child you can't, you're given that. And there is still discrimination going on in housing. There are these studies where people go out to, they call and they say, oh yes, this apartment is available. And then when a white person gets there, it's still available. But if the Black person came, or if the person with a name that sounds like a Black person, that still goes on. And we can't, and for us to say, my personal experience has been that I saw somebody who was being heard, or that I went down and testified, that the systemic issue is that there are statistics to support that these issues are going on. You personally may never have been stopped in your life. You've never been tracked in a store. Maybe you have, and you're white and you think that we look at the whole picture, the history, and what is going on now. And to call people, is that the thing to stop?
It is, yeah.
All right, then I'll come back later.
Marion
Beatrice.
Amal would like to get on the list.
All right, he'll follow Jenny. The list, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 people on the list. Rebecca is next.
Can you put me on too after Amal?
All right.
And Cindy?
Put Quinn on too, please.
Good. We have a long list.
Okay.
Rebecca?
Okay, yes. I just want to say our governor just forgave 2 men who really were over-sentenced in time in jail. One man had participated in a robbery, and the person he was with shot and killed one of the people being robbed. And because he confessed, he got a shorter sentence than the man who hadn't participated in the killing, because he wouldn't confess to a crime he had not committed. And he and another Black man were just forgiven. That isn't quite the right word, and they're out of jail now. So that it was really, that's a very good thing that our state does, and I hope, or did, and I hope that it affects the sentencing. I think the sentencing is particularly cruel in this country. And it's inappropriate because they're sentencing people who need to be at home working to raise their families. They're actually making everything worse by doing that. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Let's see, what time do we have? We have 10:51. All right, we have Louise. Louise is next.
Actually, Pedro and Beatrice pretty much said it for me, so I won't say anymore.
All right. Thank you, Louise. Bill?
I want to clarify what I said about the housing discrimination. Because I was talking about reparations, and so it was appropriate to talk about what happened 70 years ago, because that's the ground for reparations. The 70 years that since it's happened, white families had been able to accumulate wealth that was denied Black families. But while the government is no longer discriminating, white people are doing it on their own, even though it's illegal. In fact, the former president was prosecuted and had to pay a fine for housing discrimination in New York against Blacks. And his father was an avid racist and member of the Ku Klux Klan who discriminated against Blacks. But I was talking to a friend the other night who said, and she lives in the Lower Garden District, and she said that
You muted yourself, Bill.
Bill, you're muted.
yeah, she said, I forgot what I left off, but she said her neighbor owns a 8-unit apartment building near her, and she will not rent to African Americans. So housing discrimination continues, but I will also say, someone talked about incarceration. There has been progress. I went to the Civil Rights Museum in Jackson, Mississippi, and in the 1880s, Black people were locked up just because they needed free labor, but there was no longer an incentive to keep them healthy, because when they were slaves, they kept them healthy because they could sell them for a lot of money. And in the decade of the 1880s, no Black person survived their prison term. They all died in incarceration. Likely most of those were trumped up charges. So yes, there's progress, but
Bill, you're muted again.
keep inadvertently. Yes, there's progress, but it was a low bar to get over. But as the article said, Blacks make up the majority of our prison population, and they're 13% of the country. So it's still happening. It's just a little better, maybe.
Thank you, Bill. Jean?
Well, quickly on the prison population, what's more amazing is the number of cases where after 16, 25 years, the person is exonerated because there was inadequate counsel, there was problems with the evidence, it was being withheld. And so it's not all people in there that are guilty of a crime, period. Housing, we have economically, people can't buy on my street hardly. I mean, an average, I couldn't buy this house myself now. And one of the problems here is that we've got a county council chair who is up for affordable housing, and we've got members of the public as well as on the council who are up for this development, and they're really pushing things that are not consistent with providing everybody the equal opportunity to get a house. We talk a big game, and it's really problematic. A couple of years ago, when my son's father called into a bank to get a home equity loan, everything was fine. They went through everything. We said, okay, we'll just come in and sign the papers. Well, he went in, and when they saw his black face, he was no longer eligible to get this loan. And this is a man who's highly professional, lives in a very, very nice house, and his is worth much more than mine. But he sued, and so he got reparation. And he also, part of it was that they insisted on training for the members of the bank, the staff of the bank, with respect to racism or not. And I know when I found out about redlining, I took my money out of white banks and put them in black banks that were not doing the redlining at that time. I mean, I did check them out, but thank you.
Thank you so much, Jean. Jenny?
I have an unstable internet connection and I kind of keep freezing. So here's hoping I make it through my 2 minutes. Some of y'all may have seen this, and I don't remember where I saw it, but it was a Black couple had their home appraised, and it was like, that seems really low. I don't get it. So they had a white friend meet the appraiser, had all pictures of white people on the wall, white kids. The value went up $493,000. It's just like, anyway, so it's alive and well. And then the other thing, talking about medical care, and I Googled this because we were talking about it a little bit at church last Sunday. Today, there's 5% of doctors in the US are Black. It's up 4% from 120 years ago. It's not up at all from the 1940s. It's the same. And Black doctors make $50,000 less than white doctors. So it's alive and well in housing and medical care and all the other areas. It was a great article. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Amal?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, the lady who spoke before me actually took one of the points that I was going to make. But I'll digress from that and talk about something else. Dr. Frank, there's a psychologist, her name is Dr. Frances Quest Wilson. She said there's 9 areas of people activity, all of whom white supremacy rule. But let's focus on the housing area. A lot of people, there was a doctor of sociology, I can't remember his name, a Black guy. I think he was at UCLA or somewhere on the West Coast. And he did an experiment calling into different apartment complexes. And what he would do is he would disguise his voice, and this is the way he worded it, in traditional white sounding voices. And he would give himself a traditionally white sounding name. And he did the same thing as a Black man, and he did the same thing as a Mexican. And he said that almost 100% of the times he would get callbacks for being the white guy. When he would get, very rarely he'd get a call back for being a Mexican, because even though you're Mexican, you have a Spanish name, it's still European. And then if you was if you a Black man and your name was Malik or Kareem or something like that, and you didn't have a traditionally white sounding name, you never got a call back. So he, in doing this experiment, and he did the percentages of the times that he did get callbacks for the different people and characters that he was playing, like I said, almost 100% of the times, he always got a call back for being the white guy or the white sounding person with the white sounding name. So if we are so having done that, that was a prime example. And this wasn't that long ago. I don't want the people to think I'm talking 20 years ago. No, this wasn't 20 years ago. This was within I'll go as far as to say the last 10 to 15 years. But nevertheless, in having done that experiment, he realized that the housing market isn't as fair and open as it says it is when it comes to people who have Black sounding names, and if their voice traditionally sounds like they're Black, versus people who are white and who have white sounding names. This persists in housing all across the board. So if we're assuming that housing is just fair and open to everybody, then you're living in an unrealistic world. And just because it didn't happen to you personally doesn't mean that it's not happening to people across the board who don't look like you.
Thank you, Amal. Phyllis?
Jean once on the list too. So yeah, Ginny shared the story I was going to talk about too. So I guess if Ginny didn't, Amal would have. But I wanted to say that it seems like from this conversation that not only, because I believe there are still government enforced systemic oppressions going on, but that some racist white people are also helping with that, just as individual citizens who own property or own stores or walk through neighborhoods or whatever. And I think that that is something we good-hearted, caring, non-racist white people should be aware of when we're out and about in the world. And I think, you know, unlike what Quinn did, I think if you're walking past the police, talking to a white or talking to a young Black man, you should stand there and watch, especially if you're a white person. And if you want to get out your camera, even if nothing's going on, because I think the police need to be monitored, and average citizens can do that. Thanks.
Thank you, Phyllis.
Did you see Marla, Marion?
I sure didn't.
Phyllis was talking.
I was scanning the screen, but thank you, Beatrice. What is the time? It's 11:02. We have Cindy, Quinn, Jean, and Marla.
You should probably close the list.
Yes, the list is closed. And whoever is on the list that doesn't speak, hopefully will. Let's try it. Cindy?
I think it's pretty obvious that we agree with this article. We've all run into it in small ways or larger ways. But I think someone said a little while ago, it's not only everywhere, but I would add is all the time and has been, at least as long as I've been alive, which is getting to be a long time. My question is, I think act individually is definitely the first step, that we need to call it when we see it, raise the question with people that we know that make comments or actions that are racist or even stereotypic of what they're saying about people. But also, I'd like to find other ways. I think this group is a great step in the right direction. We need more gathering places where this can be discussed. How can we convince more people if all of us are talking to our friends, family, neighbors? We need a more concerted effort. And I'd like to know if there are other mechanisms that you all know, other groups, forums, where these topics can be put out there with the information that shows the extent of racism built in. Otherwise, we're not gonna, certainly it's better than it was, but we got a long way to go. And compared to other top of the line countries, we're not there anymore. We need to change our ways. Enough said.
Thank you, Cindy. Quinn? Quinn, are you there?
hear. Can you hear me? I'm
Could
sorry.
you speak up a little bit louder?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I don't know where to start, but first off, most of the people I know they're mostly white people, but also black people, would not agree with this systemic racism at all. I know you do, and you dwell on it. You seem my impression is very negative, gloom and doom. The glass is half empty and so forth. But black doctors, a lot of black doctors come from right here. They started Xavier University. And if you go out to a pharmacy, you'll see black pharmacists, white pharmacists, and a lot of Vietnamese pharmacists. Most all of them went to Xavier, and they're all making better than average income. So all you have to do is go to Xavier, get a pharmacy degree, and you'll make above average income. The opportunity is there. There's lots of opportunity there. Okay, and it's school suspensions. I know teachers, white teachers, they think black kids aren't suspended often enough. They say they try to not do it because it makes people do statistics on this and makes them statistics look bad, but they're only really doing it because they have to, because they're misbehaving. And it's a lack of family support in most of the poor kids' results. Let me read you something about family. So a prominent black man said this: if we are honest with ourselves, we'll admit the way too many fathers are missing from too many lives in too many homes. We know the statistics that children who grow up without a father are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of schools, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison. They're more likely to have behavioral problems, etc. You know who said that? Barack Obama. So it's absolutely true, and it's extremely important. And Glenn is the only one who admits that. And I always I salute Glenn for being there. And as far as prison, I go when there's no pandemic. I go to prisons. It's with Christian ministry, and I sit down. And we talk with black people around the table, black and white people. Most of them are wonderful people, but they don't deny that they didn't commit a crime. They committed a crime. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Quinn. Jean and Marla.
Amal
Marla.
has a clarifying question.
I didn't see your hand, Amal.
Yes, so I want the clarifying question I wanted to ask to Quinn was he said that this idea of systematic racism is doesn't exist. My question is, was there ever a time in the history of this country when it did?
Yes.
When did it stop?
I'm not sure, but it stopped in 1964 with the civil rights laws. To a large extent, it stopped, and it's evolved ever since, and it's improved ever since. Okay?
Okay.
Not perfect, but it's getting there. Why can't we all just get along? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Amal. Thank you, Quinn. Did that satisfy your question, Amal?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Jean?
Another example that we didn't cover at all is the black farmers. There's a lot of, they've even bought suit and they've never followed through, or I've never gotten the money from the suit either. But I just wanted to cover something else. Here in Montgomery County in Maryland, we have a law that effective with August 1, 2020, any legislation that's proposed has to go through the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice. It's a law that we enacted 2 years ago. And the following questions guide the development of the statements. What does the bill seek to accomplish? What impact, or who's impacted by the bill and how? both negative and positive. And the third is, if there are potential adverse impacts, how can they be mitigated? So that is one way that here in Montgomery County in Maryland that we're trying to enact legislation that is, equitable and does not hurt our Black community. We are a majority county too. So we high respect for our fellow neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Marla?
Excuse me, I have a qualifying question.
Pedro has a clarifying question.
Yeah, or clarifying, excuse me. Yeah, Jean, can you put in the chat or send out the link to that committee that screens the legislation in Montgomery County?
Okay.
I'd like to get more information on that. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll try to do it in the chat.
All right, and that is the end of our list.
Marla has not spoken,
Oh, Marla, I'm sorry, I said Marla.
but
I
then
sure
she
did.
got interrupted.
There was a clarifying question. Yeah, I'll go quickly, and this can actually probably be my wrap up. I was a little late, so I'm not sure if it was already addressed, but in looking at more aspects of systemic racism, social media and the algorithms that are used filter out people of color, elevating those voices all of the time based on what people choose to view, what people choose to post, and so forth. So voices that should be elevated are consistently being quieted, silenced on social media. When people of color are looking for a home on social media, there have been filters that have filtered out into communities that are predominantly Black for folks who are Black searching for homes. And actually, I believe at one time, even someone in Trump's administration brought up that point of bias within social media that was occurring. The final example I just wanted to note from my own personal experience, if you really want to see it alive and well, I mean, I don't want to, but it's undeniably there, looking at how systemic racism has infiltrated platforms like Nextdoor. Go and see what your neighbors are saying and the words and the phrases they are using. I mean, I have to limit time on there because blood pressure rises, and it is insane how the language that's used is careful language. They may not be overtly putting it out on their sleeve as they were back in the 1950s, but it is undeniably there. Referring to folks coming from New Orleans into Metairie, which is where I live, to eat at a restaurant, and referring to people as animals. The animals are coming from New Orleans. What do we think we're talking about here? Who do we think we're talking about? A couple years back, I guess it was 2020, someone spray painted on a fence down my street, and were, expletives, etc. And I was the one who raised this question, about, do you want this in your neighborhood? And people were telling me I should mind my own business, that I should turn the other cheek, I should look the other way, that I should just move along and not worry what someone has on their fence in our neighborhood, saying these racist things. So yeah, it's alive and well, and it's especially alive and well out here in Metairie. And I don't like living here, but alas, I do. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Marla. That concludes our conversation. There was one person who's been leaving comments, and that was Nora. I believe I'm scanning the screen.
I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 5 people who haven't spoken. Nancy, Nora, Lynetta, Lynn, and Cheryl. Is there anybody I missed that has not spoken? Raise your hand.
I don't
Okay.
see Nancy on my
Yeah.
screen.
Nancy's on your screen. So Nancy, you want to write these names down to call for the
I'm writing
2-minute?
them down.
So
Nancy,
Nancy, Nora,
Nora,
Lynetta,
Leonetta,
Lynn, and Cheryl.
for some reason, Nancy isn't on my screen, Lynn isn't on my screen, and Cheryl, but I have your names. So Nancy, if you're there.
What was I going to say? Everything in this article is very good. One area that we did not talk about was, it might not be in here, was employment. That's what I wanted to talk about, and how when they talked about names that sound, that Afrocentric names and whatnot. I've had a supervisor, a white supervisor, tell me that if I can't pronounce their names, I throw their resume in the trash. That's a horrible thing to say and a horrible thing to do. But apparently they felt very comfortable and thought that what they were doing was correct, that they would tell me that. And so, yes, that is a form of, I've known people who have like used initials instead of their name because their name was Afrocentric sounding, so that they could at least get their foot in the door for an interview. So yes, housing.
Someone is
may be
talking
different.
very, excuse me, Nancy, someone is talking very
It's
loudly in the back.
Rodney. It's Nancy's husband.
Yeah, he's loud. Back to, oh, now I lost my train of thought. But anyway, you understand what I'm saying, right? That in all of these areas, employment is the basis. Being able to not only get a decent education, but to be able to be employed so that you can have a decent life and enjoy the, I mean, it's one thing to get an education. And they always say, oh, get an education. But can you get a job to pay back your student loan and live at the same time? So anyway, very good article, very good article.
Thank you, Nancy. Nora?
Yeah, I just want to tag on to what somebody mentioned before about transportation being another area. And I'm thinking that could be broadened just to say, mean environmental. We find a lot of dump sites and other unhealthy practices in communities, minority communities. And I put a couple things in the chat about, an acquaintance locally in Austin writes and researches about how cities are designed and planned that promotes inequities, and that is deciphercity.org. And then also I mentioned last time about my book club and what we're reading, and I don't know if I mentioned about we're reading Weapons of Mass Destruction. I can't remember if I brought that up last time about algorithms and how they promote inequities. Interesting book. That's it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Nora. Lynetta?
It was a wonderful article. And first, I have a lot of things I want to say, and Marva, please cut me off because I got a lot of stuff to say. The first thing I want to say is that I was followed in the Dollar General store on Earhart, and I turned around and told the security guard, I can buy anything in here. Why are you following me? And he looked at me like I was crazy. And I've never been back to not only that Dollar General store, no Dollar General stores after that. The second thing is that the expelling of the Black children, Black kids, the children, I'm gonna put it personally, the Black children that I deal with, they come to go to school with so much baggage and so many problems that their teachers, and especially their white teachers, can't deal with it, couldn't deal with it, don't know how to deal with it. Not to say that the Black was will deal with it better, but they may understand some of the stuff that these children are going in. And children, depend on the age they are, that's how they deal with trauma, they act up. And if there were more social workers in the schools, more teachers that look like them, that the kids felt comfortable talking to them, maybe we wouldn't have so many behavior problems in school, but that's just Lynetta's opinion. The next thing is that I have never heard of Black police handling, the police handling whites like they handle Black people. I had a friend that went into a neighborhood looking for houses for sale and was pulled over by the police saying that they were casing the neighborhood and they were just looking for sale houses. That would never happen to a white couple going into a Black neighborhood. And that's just how things are. I personally feel that the white supremacists have infiltrated the police department and the medical field. Does that mean I need to shut up?
Yeah.
Yes,
I
that was
mean,
the
it
2-minute
doesn't mean you
warning.
need to shut up, but you're.
No.
I think I said
No,
enough.
oh goodness. Did you finish your remarks, Lynetta?
Yes, I have. One more thing. Y'all were talking about when I got on about the voting. I have a friend that lives in Alabama, and they passed about, and Nancy had mentioned about IDs. That Alabama is a very rural state, and they've shut down half of the places where you can apply for driver's license. So that is a part of voter suppression going through the back door.
All right. Thanks, Leonetta. Oops, almost did it. Lynn.
Thank you very much, Marion, for your article, and thank you to my fellow club members for your comments. I really can't add anything to your excellent comments, and I'll give my time to Leonetta if she thinks of something else she wants to say.
All right, this is Marva's
Sorry,
article.
Cheryl is still left to speak. Cheryl.
Yeah, I was just correcting Lynn that I'm volunteering to take Marva Guillemet's place. She wasn't able to attend the discussion, so I volunteered to take her place. So I will pass these comments on to Marva after the discussion has ended. Thank you so much. Cheryl?
Thank you, everyone, for letting me listen in. I really appreciate being here. I really think this is a great article. And I also was pleased to see the diversity of our group and picking up Ben and Jerry's campaign. They've been really at it, I guess, because I've had things through Jewish families that I know that have disagreements. So they're working with the Jewish Palestinian situation as well. It seems like it's a great campaign and a nice way for at least a person like me to share with my family, because everybody loves ice cream. I think that everything in that article was true. I didn't really find any new news there. I wanted to comment that Trader Joe's in Oakland, California follows my Black friends around when they shop there. If you can imagine, their dreadlocks, but I just think that's really like, if you can be followed around in Trader Joe's at Oakland, you can be followed around anywhere. And I definitely know that when I've been in relationship and half of my family life is of color, that direct contact, with racism as far as renting and, the comments and the things that I see, it's definitely very, very true. I think talking about it is great, but economically, we really are going to have to change so many things. This week was very discouraging, and my heart was really saddened by the way things went, and we've got so much work to do. When we start to see people with love and our goods as commerce instead of people as commerce and our goods as love, then maybe we can get somewhere. We really are going to have to change the way that we use people as items to make money for us, whether that's renting houses to them or hiring them for jobs, or just all the different ways that our society is guilty of creating commerce from human beings. Thank you, and have a good week, everyone.
Thank you, Cheryl. All right. At this time, let's see. Did everyone speak? I'm looking at the list.
All
And I'm
the people who got 2 minutes to wrap up have spoken. So now everybody else who wasn't on that list gets 1 minute.
All right, let's start with Amal, 1 minute. Share your final remarks with us, please.
Yeah, I'll take it. So yeah, good article. One of the things that the article mentioned that that stuck out with me is it talked about how systematic racism is not that obvious, and I think that's a key component that a lot of people miss, because when people think about racism, we're still thinking about racism the way it looked 50 plus years ago. And being that racism doesn't look like that anymore, it gives people the impression that it's over with and done with, and it's not a problem anymore. No, racism is still built into the very fabric of this society. And the way that we know that systematic racism still exists, just a few weeks ago, I can't remember how many articles back it was, we did an article about a Asian lady who felt like she couldn't be her authentic self, that she had to take on a more Anglian sounding name because it allowed for her to fit in. And then she said, well, no, I'm going to go back to being my authentic self, and I'm going to get my Asian heritage back by getting an Asian name and not be ashamed of that. Well, why would a person feel a need to get a name that doesn't sound like their authentic self unless it's not built into the fabric of the society that they're living in? That is white supremacy. That is systematic racism. Another example of systematic
Sorry,
racism.
your time was
Time is
up.
up.
My time's up?
Amal.
All right,
Yep.
my bad. Go ahead.
Thank
Good
you.
to see everybody.
Glad you're
I just
back.
let me make a point about, because I know a lot of people had made some comments about they were glad to see me. I haven't been in the area where my internet access is very good, so that's why I haven't been on for the few weeks that I hadn't been on. But it's good to see everybody. I'm okay. There's nothing wrong with me. I just haven't been in the area where the internet access is very good.
Thank you, Amal. We're glad to see you. We missed you. Leonetta? Are you there?
Leonetta was one of the 2 minute people.
Leonetta,
So she already did her wrap up. We're doing the 1 minute people. So everybody.
I already did my my wrap up. But
Do you want me to call them out, Marion? Marion? Can you hear me? Are you there, Marion? Can anybody hear me? Marion, do you want me to call out the people who need to do their 1 minute wrap ups?
excuse me. I am so sorry. Would you do that? I have an emergency phone call
Yeah,
from a
no
family
problem.
member.
Okay.
Please
Just
handle
mute.
that.
Okay. I'll mute you too. Oh, my shirt. Trying to get Marion to mute. Sorry, give me a minute, y'all. It's weird. Okay, Bill, if you want to start, hoping.
Okay, first of all, I want to join the chorus to welcome them all back. I always learn something from him, and it's great to see you. So that's great. I could go on for hours talking about systematic racism that I have observed personally or that I read about in the news. And I'm a white guy, so I imagine the African-American members of our group could go on for even longer. And, but I won't start citing any more examples now. Tell Marva that was a great article, and Marion did a great job as the facilitator. So I look forward to next week, and we're going to have a member from the Orleans Legacy Project talking about the work that they're doing to bring aspects of the Legacy Museum to New Orleans. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Louise?
So yes, I also am a big Amal fan, so I'm very happy you're back, and I'm very happy that you are okay. Just technical problems. Yeah, there is no doubt in my mind that systemic racism exists. It's bloody obvious, really. And this resource, this article actually is a fantastic resource for us to share. If we feel helpless and don't know what to do, share this with people. I mean, it's breaks it down brilliantly. And so yes, we can do that. Also do some self-reflecting. That bias thing, thank you. The implicit bias test by Harvard. Yes, let's do that. I mean, and also share that with people to do. People don't realize that they are doing these things and they have their biases. Like in that TED talk, the lady was like, sorry, very quick, was biased because it was a female pilot. At first she was like, yes, great, a female pilot. She's a female, by the way, the talker. And then when they got into turbulence, she was like, oh, I hope she can handle this. I mean, we all have our little biases. So great talk. Thank you. Bye. Have a great day, weekend.
Thanks, Louise. Cindy, 1 minute.
I said before, and I repeat it, it's all around us, it's everywhere. It is our job to counter it, to speak to a perpetrator, to call out a situation, to post, to in any way we can, to demonstrate that this is not necessarily, it's not a necessary ingredient and not a desirable ingredient in our culture. We need to call it out. And it might not be comfortable, but you know what? It's long past time for it to be done. Thanks. I hope you all have a good week.
Thanks. Pedro?
Okay, thanks. Hey, so real quick, systemic racism, I think, as Amal said, has changed its color, so to speak. But we know it exists because of the profound inequities this article and all sorts of documentation reveal. I think when progress is a lack of progress, systemic racism is alive and well. So I would be very careful to fall into the argument that things are better because now Blacks have voting rights or because Blacks have this or that or the other. And under President Obama, actually wealth inequality increased. And I'd be real careful that regardless of color, those who investigate this subject should be held and judged by the science-based critique of the results and not by the color of someone's skin. A lot of times people knee-jerk to African-American interpretations of something to justify a implicit form of racism. And I think if we stay science-based and look at these inequalities for what they are, they reveal the truth. Anyhow, thank you for the discussion.
Thanks, Pedro. Jean?
If anybody doubts that racism is alive and well, just look at Congress. They can't pass an equitable voting rights to John Lewis's bill and the other two voting rights. And in fact, they're just shutting down the ability for people to have access to the voting booth, particularly people of color. And it's all alive and well. Thank you. I hope everybody has a wonderful day. Hope Marion's back feels better. And I'll see you next week. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jean. Rebecca?
Thank you for a wonderful article and for a wonderful discussion. I think it was really excellent. And hope everybody has a good week. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Michelle?
Thank you to Marion for stepping in to facilitate on Marva's behalf. I put in the chat, I don't think I mentioned this last week when I was facilitating, but I put in the chat a link to a StoryCorps. I don't know, those of you who are familiar with StoryCorps, but, and there was a small piece on 60 Minutes, I believe like 2 weeks ago that went over this. And so I found out about it through the book that I recommended last week, the High Conflict book by Amanda Ripley, which I again recommend to everybody. I think everybody can get a bit of wisdom and information out of it. So, but StoryCorps is doing another initiative called One Small Step. And it's a one-on-one. It's the two people getting together and having from opposing sides of an argument, basically getting together and being recorded. And they're taking that around the country. They're calling out for people who would like to participate. So I put the link to the website if anybody's interested in signing up to participate. So I don't know if I'll get called, but I'm looking forward to the possibility of doing that. So hope everybody has a good week. Thanks.
Thanks, Michelle. Ginny, you're next.
I was hoping I'd go on the heels of Michelle. Perfect. That example of two people on opposite sides talking, because I've been thinking, I love this article, but I don't think facts change people. I think relationships change people, and connection and empathy, which is not my strong suit on somebody who thinks opposite of myself. So that is really, really good that they're doing that. So thank you for that, and very rich discussion. Thanks.
Thank you, Ginny. Beatrice?
Took me a moment. I don't know why I wouldn't unmute. Great discussion, great article. Just a really couple quick points. Khalil Gibran Muhammad has a book called The Condemnation of Blackness. And one of the things he says is that when a social issue has a black face, it seems not to be as important and solvable. But if you put on a white face, it works. The perfect example is the drug issue, which was, used to be a law and order issue. Now it's a health issue. And we all jumping, trying to save people with Norcam. Georgia has a county in which there is only now one polling place. All have been closed, and there is no public transportation. So that doesn't happen for everybody. Where are the Black fathers from homeless? What about the high incarceration rate for young men? Please look at that. Adverse childhood experiences, they're called ACEs. And if children experience a certain number of them before a certain age, it affects their lives. Chemical, I've heard something about a place, Enterprise, West Virginia, chemical plant.
Thank you,
Can you repeat that? What about Enterprise?
Yeah, it was on NPR. I guess it was. Yeah, Enterprise, West Virginia, a city where there's a chemical plant. It's an all-black town, and the people are very highly affected by it.
Thanks. Next is Glenn. Glenn. Oh, there he is.
Okay. Yes, always interesting. The articles are very good. And, but uh, none of them are solution orientated. It just bring up a whole bunch of issues and with no solutions. Uh, and African Americans are always looking for somebody else to solve their solution for them when they have when everybody should have their own destiny in their own hands. That's what we don't realize, that we actually have our own destiny in our own hands. But we keep listening to these old crazy white liberals who say that uh, uh, we don't have no, we have no way of changing our condition. This is something that is systemic and it's going to stay that way. Uh, so only thing we can do is share in your grief. No solutions, but I know there are solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Quinn? Quinn, do you want to do your 1 minute wrap up?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Okay, just I always like what Glenn has to say. He goes to say there's no solutions. Well, the solution is not to dwell on the negative. Negative. You're never going to have racial harmony that way. The lady talked about the fences being defaced. Call me next time. I'll go down there with you. To talk about if people are making racial comments on fences. And there's been so much progress. You know, I play bridge a lot. I play bridge with Black people. I played bridge with the lady who was the first graduate of Newcomb College. Played bridge with a lady who's the first graduate, a Black graduate of NYU in New York. There's so many good things going on. And I don't think you're promoting racial harmony. The whole thing, if I give this to people, most of the people I know, they'll say it's ridiculous. You all think it's like the Holy Bible or something. It isn't. It comes across to most people as just not relevant at all. But I think we focus on the positive. Thank you.
Yeah, do me a favor, Quinn. Don't mention my name.
I can't help it. I'm sorry. And I'm going to send you that article too. Bye-bye.
Okay, I'll do my wrap up. I think I did offer some solutions, or at least some ways to address some of the symptoms, and that would be for white people to stop policing Black people and start policing white racist people. That will, the more of us speak out, the less comfortable it will be for those people, including cops. And on a very sarcastic note, I have some stress about starting to look for a new apartment, and this conversation has made me less stressed because I'm white. Very sarcastic. Thank you. Marion, do you want to take over and do the
Yes.
the wrap up for the facilitator?
First of all, I want to apologize for leaving since Christmas week. Murphy's Law has been affecting my life 100, 200%. And I want to apologize for leaving. First of all, I do believe with all my heart that systemic racism does exist. There have been men in my family who have been stopped by the police. On one occasion, it was my brother who was driving a vintage car, and the 5 police officers approached the car with guns drawn. They used racial slurs to address him. They threatened to shoot him. They wanted to know where the car came from. Thank the Lord that he was able to get out of the situation. He had the papers to prove that he was the owner of the car. That's my brother, who's younger than I am. I shared with some of you some time ago that my mother's older brother was killed by the Ku Klux Klan in 1950, I shared that with you all some time ago. Systemic racism does exist, and it affects people in a way that affects their psyche. You don't get over someone in your family being killed because of the color of their skin. You don't get over being stopped by the local police twice and a Louisiana state trooper one time. Big burly guy on a motorcycle wearing sunglasses. He fit the stereotypical thing you see on TV. I think that it's a miracle that Black people have been able to survive in this society. And you all have heard me say this before, that if people would just consider that people of color are human beings. And some of you also know that I am a person of faith, and I don't believe God made a mistake. And I think that's what it's all about. People are here to stay. When it's their time to go, they're going to leave. And it behooves everyone who is not a person of color to understand and to try to have conversations, as is suggested in the article. Talk to your friends, your siblings, your roommates, your kooky uncle. Systemic racism is real, and we all need to be fighting to end it. So I want to thank everyone for the participation, and I am going to call Marva after the discussion and tell her how this article generated a very stimulating conversation. So I want to say once again that I appreciate you all's patience. As I said, since Christmas, it has been unbelievable. Today is my stepdaughter's memorial service that I'm unable to attend because it's taking place in St. Louis, Missouri. So I'm a little upset about that I won't be able to attend. And hopefully for the rest of the year, starting in February, I hope things are going to calm down a little bit. So thank you all for your participation. And I'm going to pass your kind remarks on to Marva when the discussion ends. So thank you all very much for